compared to the previous evictees, I mean, you were a class act at the end. What happened in those last couple of hours to lead up to that?
Well, I knew that going into it, I was going to play the game to the end. And I tried lobbying for votes until the last 10 minutes, right up until, the ceremony. And at that point, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get enough votes to stay in. So for me, the game was over. The persona I was playing, the character I was playing, the villain, that role, it was, no longer, it's up. It's done.
Now, it seems like you were managing to convince Kevin, like we saw a scene where the two of you were playing pool, and you were managing to convince him that maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea to keep you around. Why didn't you stay with that rather than just go, balls out with the fighting? Why didn't you just continue on that quest?
I did. I actually had Kevin, and he told me that he would vote for me if I could guarantee another vote. At that point, it was up to me to get either Michelle or Jordan. Jordan was a tougher squeeze. Michelle was my only option. And from Michelle's body language of avoiding me, not talking to me, and being very, just not opening up, I knew that it was a tough hill to climb, and I wasn't going to be able to get her vote.
Mm-hmm. Is she ever open? She seems kind of awkward in front of the camera. What is she like? Really?
She is also awkward. She's also a sweetheart. She is a very intelligent lady, one of the smartest ladies I've been around, and you have to open her up, and you have to take time with Michelle. She's not someone you can sit down with, crack a couple jokes, and you're good friends. So she's someone that definitely needs some coddling, and she's a sweet girl.
Now, fans who watch the feed said that you told Jeff that once you get to the Final Four, you're going to target him, but you also apparently told Jeff on the feeds that you plan to go to the Final Two with Michelle. Did that happen?
Jeff may have thought I was going to be having a Final Two deal with Michelle because we started to get very close. Jeff and Jordan were paired up, Kevin and Natalie were paired up, so essentially my only other option was Michelle, and we were spending more time together because we were have-nots. We'd stay up late and talk, so he was becoming more and more weary that we were forming an alliance, so that's where I think a lot of it came from. I did tell him, though, that I would ride out the Final Four, and at that point, all bets are off.
Well, let's talk about that, because you discussed this with Julie, too, last night, that you plan to stay true to that. But I really wonder, I mean, would you have, let's say, if you're still in the House this week, and if you would have won HOH, I mean, Jeff is clearly a strong player. Why not just target him this week and say, hell with the deal?
The one reason why I had no problem sticking to the deal, Michelle was my Final Two.
Yeah.
She was the only other threat in that house besides myself. I can beat Jeff physically and mentally to anything, so to me he was not a threat. I knew that there was no game or competition he could beat me at. And so I didn't see him as this big threat that everyone else sees him at. Right now he is, because he's the most, imposing physical stature in there, and with me in there, it's me. He can't beat me at anything. So that's the train of thought I had.
So you said you had this persona, so when you saw that you were backdoored, were you legitimately pissed off, or was that kind of an act too?
No, it was definitely an act. I would have, if I'm sitting in Jeff's shoes, I would definitely backdoor me. Why would you leave someone who is the strongest player in the game still there? And you don't have an alliance with them. If you have an alliance with them, that's one thing. If you don't, you're kind of just shooting yourself in the foot. From his angle, it made sense. I could see it, but I was not going to roll over and play dead. The game was still there to be played. I played at the last minute, and a lot of people just give up, throw in the cards, and say it's over. I was going to play till the end.
Well, yeah, you instigated some epic battles. Let's start with Ronnie. Now, Ronnie, I mean, man, he was curled up in a fetal position up in the room. I mean, was that all an act, or was some of that genuine? You were really pissed off at the dude.
No, Ron Dog's he's a funny kid. I had to put a lot of pressure on Ronnie because people at that point in the game were thinking no one can beat Russell. Russell is too strong, too smart, too good at this game that, we need to basically get rid of him. And Ronnie was setting me up for the next week to go out by basically telling people different stories. So I had to take all the attention off myself, put it on Ronnie, and that's what I did.
But were you really mad at him, or was that against his back? No.
No. I towards anyone in that house, I think all 12 other house guests are great people. They're all amazing people, and it's not my fault that some people didn't go in there with tough skin. I went in there knowing that anything I do or say or act is fair game. And I think Evil Dick opened that Pandora's box, and when you signed on that dotted line, you knew that anything was fair game.
Now, let's talk about, your interactions with Shima. At one point or several times, she referred to you as a terrorist, and, viewers took great issue with that. How did you react when you heard some of the things that she said, and what did you feel about her in general?
I'm not mad at Shima, and a lot of people might be shocked when they hear that. I decided to use that to my advantage. It was a time and opportunity for me to actually out her and put a lot of pressure on her, and that's what I intended to do with it, and it worked. And ultimately, she knew that she made a mistake, she slipped up, and she had to backtrack, and it sent her from being offensive in an argument to start reeling and looking for outs, and everyone could see that. It was no longer the Shima that they were used to, the aggressive Shima. She was defending herself. So
people thought that she actually kind of was digging on you, but you weren't into it. I mean, did you get that vibe from her?
She was. I think she definitely started to develop feelings for me and start liking me. I definitely did not have an attachment to her. I didn't want to string her along, and I actually voiced it to Jesse and some other people throughout the show that, I didn't want to string her along, but I think that once her emotions got the better of her, it was too far of a line for her to cross, and she either had to hate me or like me, and, we couldn't be just friends in her mind.
Did you ever think that you went maybe a little too far with some of your fights? Because I agree with you, there's something to be schooled from Evil Dick, but, he just stopped at being a dick. You added that additional level of being a physical threat. You're no wallflower. So did you ever think that maybe you crossed a line?
I use intimidation to my advantage. I knew that coming into this house, I needed two things. I needed to use my physical presence, and I needed to use my intelligence. Everything else is fair game. So if I use a personal attack to get you to say something that you shouldn't be saying, not my fault. If I get you to spill the beans in the heat of a battle because you're not used to controlling yourself, that's a tactic that I'm using to further myself in the game. And people don't realize that is a game. When you step outside, you step back into reality, and you're no longer that person you created. I chose to create a person, different personalities, and if you didn't have the same approach, that's not my fault. I went in there with thick skin that anything that they say about me is fair, and I was open to it. I took every swing that everyone threw at me. So,
how do you think you came across to America? Because let's be honest, you could have gotten the America's vote just as much as Jeff. You were up for it as well. How do you think you were perceived by America?
I was the villain. I was the villain of the season, and the way I rationalize it is there's one time in your life that you get to act like a villain and act like a bad guy and not suffer any, repercussions for it. It's now. I got to act. I got to be a character and a personality that you'll never get to be again in reality. That was acting. That was fun. That was different. I didn't want to be a good guy. I didn't want to be this, this lovable character. I wanted to be something different. I wanted to be something people remembered, not something people kind of just forgot after, a couple minutes. And, oh, there's Russell. He's really nice. Who remembers a nice guy?